All right, what we're here to talk about today is the pension system. All aspects of the pension system, the retiree health care benefit, but most importantly, what I want you to know, this is going to be a 10,000-foot view. This is just a general overview of the different tiers, kind of a breakdown from there. If you're looking for very specific information about your own retirement benefit, years of service, high 3, etc., that is something that you need to refer to the Kentucky Retirement System themselves. Their counselors are very good, very helpful, can walk you through that stuff. If you have any specific questions about that to me, when should I retire, how long should I stay, I will quote the great Michael Clark Duncan in the Academy Award-winning film Talladega Nights. Do not put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. That is up to you. That is your personal decision, but the counselors are there to help you. So here we are. What we want to get out of this class. We're going to go over the inviolable contract, exactly what it is and what it is not. The retiree health insurance benefit, because there are two different versions depending upon your hire date. And similarly, the pension tiers. There are currently 3 different tiers of the pension system, once again, based on your hire date. There's been a lot of conversation about pension spiking, so we're going to go over that a little bit. What exactly is pension spiking, what it is not. And then we're going to talk about a little bit about line of duty death benefits and potential fixes that are going on with that, just to bring people up to speed. The inviolable contract. This comes from the Kentucky Constitution, and what the inviolable contract states is that a contract that has been formed between employer and employee cannot be severed. It is inviolable. This is applicable to both Tier 1 and Tier 2 pension systems, as well as health care benefits prior to 2003. Tier 1 is anybody hired prior to 2008. Tier 2 is anybody hired from 2008 to 2014. So if you are in Tier 1 or Tier 2, your pension benefits are protected by the inviolable contract. If you're hired prior to 2003, your health care benefits are protected by an inviolable contract. Health care benefits past 2003 are not protected, and pension benefits for anybody that is in Tier 3, which is 2014 through the present, those are not protected either. And we'll get a little bit more into that as we explain the tiers and we explain the health care benefit. But as it pertains specifically to CERs, KRS 78.852, as you see there, that is the inviolable contract as it pertains to CERs. And it does have a little caveat in there. It's like 6.6, but that is only dealing with elected officials with a felony conviction, so it does not impact us. So retiree health care. If you were hired prior to 2003, your health care benefit upon full pension benefit, and understand this, in order to get a health care benefit, you have to be receiving a monthly benefit from the pension system. So if you retire and you have a monthly benefit coming from the pension system, you have full retirement, and you were hired before 2003, you are going to get a benefit for your health care that is 100% for yourself and a dependent. Now, there might be a couple little tweaks with that when it comes to the Affordable Care Act rules with children. That is something a little bit different. Again, that's a question for them. I'm just giving a broad-based view, and of course we all understand, we know people who have retired in recent years that do have a small payment for their health care benefit because there are options. So what that 100% for member and dependent is basically their selected plan, and there might be some other plans with different benefits, but you will have that benefit if you were hired before 2003. Anybody hired after 2003, and this is 2003 to present, so this is a little bit separate from the pension tiers. What they will get is for every year of service that they have given to the state or the city, in our case the city and counties, they will have a $15 applied to a monthly premium for a health care product. So there is a COLA that's applied to that. So say the person works for however many years, and in this case it's going to be about 25 years, they will have $15 times 25 applied to a monthly benefit. Now there is a COLA that's tapped onto that. So it increases 1.5% per year. So right now it's actually $18.20 for each service year that will be applied times however many years, and then that amount is your monthly amount towards a health care benefit. Now take a look at this really quick. Now there are some people in there 2003 to 2008 that are 20 and out, then 2008 forward, they're 25 and out. I did the math on a 25 and out. So $21.50 for people that were hired in 2003 that work 25 years. When they retire, the COLA amount will reach up to $21.50. So it'll be $21.50 times their 25 years of service, which will then be $537.50. So they will have $537.50 a month to purchase a health care plan. Now, we've just gone through open enrollment, so if you were paying attention, I think you'll notice that $537.50 is not a lot of money to try to purchase a health care plan. So the post-2003, this isn't the greatest plan. This is part of the reason for this class is to remind people, start planning, start making other options available to yourself to make sure that you're ready for retirement, especially as it pertains to health care. Now understand too that this is something we continue to work towards to try to improve, because we can try to improve upon that benefit from 2003 forward. So anybody hired before 2003, what comes out of your paycheck is 8% that goes towards funding your pension. Anybody hired 2003 forward actually has 9% taken out of their paycheck, 8% goes to fund the pension system, and 1% goes to fund the healthcare system. This does not figure into, because whether it's 1% on a huge salary or 1% on a small salary, that's 1% that's going in to help fund the healthcare system. It is a benefit that you're going to receive that's basically just money that's going into the pool to keep that funded and that you will eventually draw upon. So anybody hired pre-2003, they're just paying towards the pension system. The healthcare system is separate, but they have the better benefit. Also, just a reminder, if there are any questions as we're going along, just stick a hand up in the air. We'll pause and try to address it. So, the Tier 1 pension system. Tier 1 pension system is anybody that was hired prior to 2008, and they are on a 20 and out system. So in other words, they work 20 years and they're eligible for retirement. They will get a benefit that is the average of their high 3 years. However many years they worked, 20 and forward, there's a factor of 2.5%. So at 20 years times 2.5, that is 50. So 50% of the average of the high 3. And for every year you work past 20, it's an additional 2.5%. So it goes up 52.5, 55, 57.5 for each year that you work past 20. Something to understand, that the way, if you look over at that benefit calculator, it is actually 25 months is what the system looks at when they do that. This is why a lot of people, they say, okay, I've gotten to where I'm ready to retire, so I'm going to go ahead and leave, and I'm going to work that month of July to get that extra month. Well, what that is they will take 2 full fiscal years to get your 24 months plus 1 month. So, but there's a common misconception that if you work that July and you get a whole bunch of overtime, they're going to take that single month, multiply it by 12 to come up with an average for that 3rd year. I promise you the system is not worked like that, because that would then, if you had a ton of overtime in that 1 month, suddenly you've got a $120,000 year on top of several $70,000 years. It doesn't make sense. However, they do divide by 25. And much like we learned with our 2080 versus 2912, if you divide by a smaller number, you get a larger number. So it divides by 25. So if you have a really big month that April, or a really big month that June, or that July, they count equally, because it's going to divide by 25. Tier 2, slightly different. This is 2008 to 2013, the people that fall within Tier 2. This one is 25 and out. So in order to get a full benefit, you have to work 25 years. It is still the average of your high 3 years, and that cost factor is still 2.5%. This is a common misconception as well. Some people think, oh, well, I have to work 25 years just to get 50% of my high 3. That is not the case. You work 25 years, the benefit factor is still 2.5%, so it would actually be 62.5% of the average of your high 3. So even though you are being forced to work 5 more years to reap a benefit, you still get that cost benefit in there that's going to be as part of your retirement. So in other words, you work that 25 years, you've still gotten that additional 2.5% for those years between 20 and 25. So you will get a bigger benefit, but you do have to work 5 more years. Another slight difference when it comes to the average of high 3. As opposed to that 25 months that they divided by, now they're dividing by a true 36 months, 3 full years. Again, if you work consistently, it's not going to make that big of a difference, but it is a larger number that you're dividing by, so there's more potential for a slightly smaller number to come out as your benefit. But just be aware of that, especially Tier 2 people, as you're getting closer. Something else you need to really look at. This is what the Kentucky Retirement System has on their website when they talk about Tier 2 benefits. Should you, for some reason, take an early retirement, that 2.5% benefit factor, that multiplier, does not kick in until after 25 years. But if you look at the way they give those examples, for instance, anybody that is less than 20 years, it's a 1.9%, and it slowly bumps up to 2.25% like between 20 and 25 years, and then anything over 25 years is the 2.5%. But if you look at the way they try to calculate a hazardous duty retirement, they give this person a $44,000 salary. They have the 2.25% times 25 years of service. Because if that person were to work 25 years exactly and retire, then yes, their benefit calculation will only be 2.25%. So if they work 25 years, that's 300 months, and one more month, that's it, just one more month, that benefit factor changes from 2.25 to 2.5. But they don't show that. They show you a 2.25% for 25 years, and if you look at the numbers there, $24,750 annual benefit for a monthly benefit of $2,062. The difference is $3,000 a year if you work one more month. So make sure that you educate yourself in that Tier 2, that you work the full 25 years plus at least 1 month to put you over 300 months to get that 2.5% benefit factor. It's, it's a few hundred extra dollars a month that we're talking about. Tier 3, this is the new, anybody hired January 1, 2014 and forward is in the Tier 3 benefit system. It is what is known as a cash balance plan. There are some people that say, oh, it's that 401k. Well, 401k is kind of an easy way to describe it, but it's not truly a 401k because the cash balance plan does have a guaranteed return on the investment, and the Kentucky Retirement System does have it set up to pay out a type of lifetime benefit. But I assure you it is nowhere near as good as the defined benefit in Tier 1 and Tier 2. So how does this work? It is still paying into the exact same CERs benefit system that all of us pay into. So there's still funding going into that same system that's paying out the people as they retire. That's a common concern. They think, well, if it's just going into an individual account, then how are we going to pay the people as they retire? It's not. It's still going into that same pool, but their figures, their numbers are tracked. So they do kind of have an individual account, but it's basically like looking at a swimming pool and saying, well, that water over there is my water. It's everybody's water that we are sharing, but you will have a designated size of a bucket that you get to take out, and the Tier 3 people get a much, much smaller bucket. So how they pay into that, once again, like everybody else, 8% from the employee is going into the system, and the employer is going to be credited for 7.5% of that employee's salary going into that account. Understand this too, the employers are paying more than 7.5% on those employees because they have a designated ARC payment, ARC, actuarially required contribution. So they are paying in much more, but what is going to be credited to that employee is their 8% and the employer's 7.5%. As that money goes into that account, they are guaranteed a 4% return on that money. This is what they call their base interest. So they have that money going in, and it earns at least 4% base interest. If it goes above 4%, and this is looked at like every few years, they look at it, make sure that it's getting at least 4%. If it's not getting at least 4%, the system has to make up the difference. Now, anything above 4%, the employee, their account is credited for 75% of anything that's above 4%. This is what's called upside sharing. The additional 25% of that upside sharing stays in the system to fund it for any of the lean years if it's less than 4% and to keep the system solvent. But so they get their guaranteed 4, and they get 75% everything above that 4, that upside sharing. After 5 years in the system, so in 2019, going forward, we'll have people that have at least 5 years in the system. They are fully vested. And when I say fully vested, it means that if they decide to quit this job, they can take everything that they paid in everything that the employer paid in and all that money that made, both the base interest, the upside sharing, they can take all of it and leave. They can go and roll it into an IRA. They can roll it into a retirement account with a new employer, whatever they want to do. They can cash it out. There are some penalties and taxes on that, but it's theirs 100%, no penalties from the employer. There might be from the IRS. So what this means and what we fear is that 5 to 10 years from now, if people have training, certifications, et cetera, that they've gotten from this community. I used myself when we were trying to fight against this. This was the first year that I was going to Frankfurt. I was still with Craig Willman at the time. I tried to explain it to these people. I said, I had at the time about 11, 12 years on the job. I'd had all kinds of training, all kinds of experience, certifications. I'd used an education benefit to get a bachelor's degree. But because of the pension system, that means all that investment that the employer did with me, I am now giving it back to the department, to the community, et cetera. So they invested in me, I'm paying it back over the lifetime of a career. Now what we're going to do with these newer people is we can invest in them, and then they can just take that and go give it to somebody else, to a higher bidder. So it is kind of dangerous that we might see some attrition further down the road. In order to get a full benefit, lifetime benefit from Tier 3, an individual does have to work 25 years. At that time, they can go ahead and just take a check for the entirety of that account, which is, of course, their contribution, the employer contribution, the 4% base interest, and the upside sharing, or they can get a lifetime annuity. The lifetime annuity is based upon their years of service, what's in their individual account, and then their age, which creates an actuarial factor. They will calculate it, and they will get a monthly lifetime benefit. Now, once they take that and cash out and choose that monthly lifetime benefit, that's it. They cannot readjust. It's not like a traditional annuity where there's a lump sum that's being drawn on and can be adjusted. No, you're basically just taking a benefit from the system, again, that pool of water, and they're saying, this is what we're betting that you're going to live, this is what we think you're going to get, and they'll give that to you. You can also, like the other traditional Tier 1 and Tier 2, you can take survivorship on that, but again, that figure is going to be considerably lower. A similar situation they give here. Now, they try to build it up, and this is what the reason for these images is if you go to their website, you look at what they talk about, they make it sound like this is wonderful, you're going to have this base interest, this upside sharing, you can make so much money over a career, but again, they're putting lipstick on a pig. They're trying to sell you a bill of goods. It's not a very good benefit, which then gives us the other image of standing in a breadline because you're going to go from public service to public assistance if you are not careful. So we look at the figures they gave. Now remember that last one, the Tier 2 person that was going to get a monthly benefit of about $2,300. Here we're looking at somebody who's going to receive a monthly benefit of about $1,200. So a considerable difference. Now, we had our actuaries with the IAFF when we tried to battle this in the first point. We had them come in, run the numbers on the system, really look at it. If a person were to work in this system for 30 plus years, and if you compare it to like a 401k out in the public sector, yes, it is actually quite good compared to that because it gets a guaranteed benefit, guaranteed return on the money, and if you work long enough, it's that snowball effect that in those last years it does grow, and it's a decent benefit at the end if you're working 30 plus years. But that is not what we're looking for our public safety employees, because you don't want 60 plus year old firefighters trying to take a roof, get into and attack a building. It just doesn't work that way. It's a young person's job. So just be very cautious. This is why we encourage people diversify, take advantage of the 457 deferred comp, take advantage of IRAs, other types of investment opportunities, and really, really understand this as you're planning. So, and real quick, let me just spend another second on that. When we talk about really work on your planning, we are still trying legislatively to do something better with this. There's not a lot of appetite right now to fix this, but as most of you have probably heard, we are trying to get CERs separated from the Kentucky retirement systems. And if we can get CERs, which is very well funded, separated from the Kentucky retirement system, and basically so we're no longer sharing fees and problems with the rest of the systems, if we can get it separated, handle it ourselves between the employees and the employers of the county and city employees retirement system, we can actually get that built back up, and then that's basically the first step to going back to a defined benefit. Once we can show and prove the solvency of that system, when we get it out from under the anchor of the Kentucky Employees Retirement System, which is abysmally funded, then we could say, okay, we built it up, let's get back to a more traditional defined benefit pension. So that's the direction we're trying to move. Pension spiking. A lot of people are concerned about pension spiking. When Senate Bill 2, which created that Tier 3 system, was put in, there were provisions put in about pension spiking that penalized employers for any employees that spiked. What was happening is you would get a bill, the cities were getting a bill, or the employers were getting a bill, cities, counties, municipalities, whatever, that would really hit them for the actuarial cost of that higher pension. So in other words, a spike is when they've worked most of their career at, say, a $60,000 to $70,000 a year job, and then in the last few years, they, for some way, somehow, spike up so they're making like $100,000+ a year, and then they retire as if there was a career making $100,000+ a year, when really all they've paid in over the life of their career is on a much lower amount. So now they're paying out as if they were up here, when really they only paid in as if they were here, and that starts to hurt the system long term. So they were penalizing the employers and saying, okay, if anybody does that, we're going to charge you for what the actuarial cost if that had been a lifetime career at that higher amount. So the cities were having to shell out a bunch of money to the state. Senate Bill 104 was coming. There was not a whole lot we could do to fight against this, so we had to fight with it to at least get some little bits in there that protected our people as best we could. So now they are shifting the onus onto the employee, but here's the only way that it impacts people. It only hurts people that retire after January 1st of 2018. So anybody that's retiring this year, this will not affect you at all. They can only start looking at funds that are made after July 1st of 2017. So in other words, if you retire after January 1st, 2018, they can only start looking back on funds from July 1st of this year forward. So again, so they could use fiscal year 16-17 as a base, and then fiscal year 17-18 start looking at, was there a spike? Any type of raise, any type of promotion is completely exempt. That does not count as a spike. If you are buying back sick leave, if you are buying back vacation time, that is not a spike. That does not count. If there is a state of emergency called, whether state, local, federally, and we work a ton of overtime because of hurricanes, ice storms, etc., if we deploy to Katrina or another similar type event, none of that will count. That is all exempt. These are the things that we were able to get put in there to make sure that our people were protected. Also, although it doesn't affect us because of the strength of our contract, for other firefighters and emergency workers in the state, a return from injury is exempt. For instance, we still get 100% pay and benefits if you're off injured. However, somebody else that's on workers' comp elsewhere only gets 66 2/3. So say they worked almost a full year at 66 2/3 of their salary because they were off injured. They come back to work, they're making 100%. That looked like a spike, and it would trigger a spike. So we got that fixed to make sure to protect emergency workers out there. So what is spiking? What are they actually going to look at? If in the last 5 years of your employment, your total creditable compensation increases more than 10% per year, that is considered a spike. Again, keep in mind all of the exemptions that we already talked about. So, in the event that there is a spike, anything that is above that 10% increase will not be counted towards your pension benefits when they are considering your high 3. Any pension contribution above that gets returned to you with interest. So if you're making something, and we've got some numbers we'll look at, let's say year one, we're just using funny math to make it easy. Year one, you made $100,000. The next year, year two, you made $115,000 because you worked a ton of overtime or you took a second job part-time in the system, whatever. Of that 115, only 110,000 would actually count towards your pension, and upon retirement, you would receive a return of $400. That would be that 8% contribution on the 110 to 115, that $5,000 above that 10% limit. So you would still make the $115,000. 110 would count towards one of your high 3, and you would get a refund from the pension system with interest of $400. On year 3, since you made 115 on year 2, you can go 10% above that. So year 3, if you made $126,500, all of that would count towards the pension. So in other words, in those last 5 years, you can jump up 50%, 10% per year each year. However, what this is protecting against, and I say this to point out that there are very, very few of our members that this is going to apply to. A person that's working a traditional career with an average amount of overtime year to year, you're never going to get close to this. Our battalion chiefs that are looking at working those extra 8 days, if you work those 8 days, 8 days is not 10% of your salary. So it's not going to touch it. We ran the math on this. Now, could that potentially affect you? Yes. Say 1 year you didn't work a day of overtime at all, and then the next year you killed it on overtime, and then you worked that 8 days in your last month, then yes, that could potentially put you over that 10% margin. You're still going to have all that money. You're still going to pocket it. It might trigger a spike with the system, and then they're going to come back to you, and it's only good. And these are all appealable, too. So if you're worried, it's like, well, what if I didn't really do it and then it triggers a spike? It's all appealable. It depends, the system will trigger it. They'll communicate with you upon your retirement, but you can appeal it. So again, for the most part, now I know there are some people out there that we have that are working a second fire job or emergency job. If you've been doing this for years, it's not going to affect you at all because it's not going to look like a 10% increase because you've been making these two salaries that make your one total creditable compensation. You've been doing that for years. It's not going to look like a spike. For those that are doing it just in the last few years to spike your pension, yes, it will impact you. I know there's not too many of those, but that's just, once again, it's a decision you'll have to make on your own. Do I want to do this as a second job? You're still pocketing all the money. You will increase your pension, your lifetime benefit, but it's a matter of what it's worth for you. Once again, don't put that evil on me. You make that decision for yourself. All right. We're going to go on and talk a little bit about line of duty death benefits because this came up recently with a police officer, Officer Rodman, that was killed in the line of duty, and it really highlighted a couple of issues. And I want to make sure people understand. First and foremost, if you happen to be on a scene where we should lose somebody, especially battalion chiefs, command staff, I need you as soon as possible, please contact me or whoever else is sitting in this particular seat, this office, because the IAFF is very well prepared, very well versed on these type of, all the things that have to happen to make sure that our members' families get all the benefits that they need. I also implore the arson investigators to really, put your cop brain to work at this because we need tons of documentation on the scene. I know it's going to seem very dispassionate, very cold at that point that we've lost one of our own, but you've got to document, you've got to start taking all the pictures, you've got to make sure that we secure that scene. And because there could be some little slip up that means that the spouse, the children don't get the full benefits that they possibly could. So we want to make sure that we secure that scene, do that, and please contact the IAFF because we have a ton of network that will work on all this, take care of the state level benefits, local administration as well as federal benefits. They're very good at it. So what benefits are out there? Through the city, there's a $50,000 life insurance policy that you renew every year when you fill out. If you remember when you're doing open enrollment, there's a base $50,000 and they allow you to purchase additional if you so want it. But there's an automatic $50,000 from the city, and also because of our contract, you will get a year's salary. Also because of the contract, you'll get $10,000 towards funeral expenses. So that's all coming through the city. From the state, line of duty death benefit for hazardous duty employees, public safety like us, $80,000. Through workers' comp, $82,000. So that's $162,000 coming from the state. Through workers' comp, there is, they calculate a final rate of pay, basically looking at what you currently make. A spouse will get 25% of that as a continued benefit, and 10% per child up to 40%. So there's an additional benefit there that they get, and that is a function of the workers' comp system. Also because of the hazardous duty, and if you understand what I'm saying here, there's a lot of different avenues that these benefits are coming from. So it is kind of difficult to coordinate all these because they're coming from different areas. It's not like just one system that controls all this. Through the fact that you're a hazardous duty public safety employee, your spouse as well as any dependent children will get free tuition at a state school. So that is something that they can then benefit from. If it's a spouse that chooses to learn a new trade, career, etc., they can take advantage of that, and the children's college will be taken care of. From the retirement system, what it does is wherever you are in the retirement system, it fast forwards you as if you had a full 20 years, or for the Tier 2 or Tier 3 people, a full 25 years, and you would receive insurance and a retirement benefit as if you had retired. But it's going to still be based on your years of service and not 20 years of service. You'll get the full benefit, but it'll still be based on your years of service. So in other words, if you have 10 years on the job, you'll still get the full benefit as if you had served a full 20 years, but it's going to be 10 years times that 2.5% benefit factor, and the health insurance is also going to be based on your years of service. So as you can imagine, for anybody hired after 2003, that health insurance benefit is not going to be very good. So this is something that we are working on. As you all know, and I hope that everybody has already completed it, working with the chief staff, we talked together about making sure that everybody had their beneficiary forms filled out, because that, that retirement system beneficiary form 2035, if it is not filled out, all of your retirement benefits will not go to your spouse or to your children. Even if you have a will that says, I want this to go to my spouse or my children, it will go to your estate. And if it goes to the estate, it sits in limbo for a long time. Anybody can come by and pick at it and try to get benefits from it, and your family is not taken care of in the meantime. So that is why we are so concerned to make sure that that form is on file, and that vitally important Form 2035. Yeah, we want to, like I said, no matter what, have this done, have it filled out. Hopefully everybody has done that since the command staff pushed that out to make sure they're filled out. It's a simple little thing, but it can be very, very harmful. So this is where we're working now because of, unfortunately, Officer Rodman, his death really brought this to light. So we're working with the FOP. They asked me to come in and help them as well, especially since this will impact firefighters. We are making sure that in the event that this happens again, that we make sure the family's taken care of. I'm not going to go into all the details of the bills that we're working on, but we want to fix that problem. We want to backdate it and make sure we take care of Rodman's family. We also want to make sure that it does not happen to anyone in the future, and we want to kind of tweak some of those benefits to make them a little bit better for a spouse and children that are left behind should one of us fall in the line of duty. So that's where we are right now, like I say, working with the FOP in Frankfurt and coming up with a couple bills to fix that. All right. Again, this has been very much just an overview, very generalized. If you have some more specific questions that maybe I can help you with, absolutely, let me know. Send me an email, give me a call. I'm more than happy to help with that. As you see, also, I've given you some resources here to the retirement system. You can actually look at your retirement account on that website. However, if you don't have a PIN, and not a PIN, a personal identification number, you cannot access anything. So if you go to Kentucky, kyret.ky.gov, or you can call them, you can find those phone numbers, talk to them, get that personal identification number. They will stick it in the mail. You'll have it within a couple days. Then you can access the myretirement.ky.gov, and you can look at everything on your system. You can verify who your beneficiary is. You can look at exactly what all of your years, the amount of money that's been put in each year. You can see years of service. You can calculate a service purchase. You can do an estimate of benefits based on when you're going to retire, and I can tell you they're all pretty darn accurate. I recently tried to do a service purchase. I'd run the numbers on the website first, and what I got from them was very, very similar in cost. So they have a lot of ways to help you, and you can contact them as well with any questions, set up something with a retirement counselor. They're very good at that, very helpful. And with that being said, that is all. So if there aren't any other questions, we appreciate your time.